The night sky above the International Space Defense Coalition headquarters was unusually clear. Commander James Walker stood at the window of his office, coffee cup in hand, staring at the stars that dotted the darkness above. 20 years of service had taught him one thing: space was never truly quiet. The soft hum of computers filled the monitoring room behind him. Screens covered the walls, each displaying different sectors of Earth's solar system. It was supposed to be another routine night shift, but something felt different. "Commander," Tom, one of the younger radar technicians, called out. His voice carried an edge that made Walker turn immediately. "You need to see this, sir." Walker placed his coffee on the desk and walked quickly to Tom's station. The radar display showed something he had never seen before: multiple large objects moving in perfect formation at the edge of the solar system. "How many?" Walker asked, leaning closer to the screen. "Initial count shows 15 objects, sir, each one larger than anything we've ever tracked." Tom's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up more detailed scans. "They're not asteroids. The movements are too precise." Walker pressed the emergency alert button on his wrist device. Within minutes, the quiet monitoring room transformed into a hub of intense activity. Senior analysts rushed in, their faces displaying a mix of excitement and concern as they took their stations. "Get me a direct line to all major space agencies," Walker ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And someone wake up Dr. Miller at the Deep Space Array. We need confirmation from multiple sources." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. More data poured in from space telescopes and monitoring stations around the globe. The objects were definitely ships, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Their energy signatures were off the charts, suggesting technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. "Sir," Linda from communications called out, "we're picking up some kind of signal. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." Walker nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, displaying a stream of data unlike anything they had seen before. The computers worked frantically to decode it, patterns slowly emerging from the chaos of information. "It's a language pattern." Dr. Miller's voice came through the speakers. He had joined them remotely from the Deep Space Array. "The structure suggests it's meant to be universal, mathematical concepts mixed with basic communication protocols. They want to talk." Walker felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization was happening during his shift. But something about the approaching fleet made his military instincts scream in warning. "Get me the president," he said, walking to the secure communication room. "And contact the other members of the Security Council. They need to know what's coming." As Walker waited for the secure line to connect, he studied the latest images of the approaching fleet. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way, sleek designs that seemed to bend the very light around them. They moved with purpose, their formation suggesting military precision. The president's tired voice came through the speaker. "This better be important, Commander." "Madam President," Walker replied, his voice firm. "We have a situation. We've confirmed the presence of multiple alien vessels entering our solar system. They're moving in a military formation and broadcasting some kind of message. Size and energy readings suggest technology far beyond our current capabilities." There was a long pause on the other end. "How sure are you about this, Commander?" 100%, ma'am. We have confirmation from multiple sources, including the Deep Space Array. This is real. We are no longer alone. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't respond to any signals until I arrive. And Commander, let's keep this quiet for now. The last thing we need is panic." "Yes, Mom." Walker returned to the monitoring room, where the tension had reached a fever pitch. The alien ships had cleared the orbit of Pluto and were now moving steadily inward. Their trajectory left no doubt. Earth was their destination. As he watched the massive ships approach, Walker couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a peaceful first contact. The formation, the size of the fleet, the military precision of their movements. It all pointed to something else. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and they weren't ready. Or were they? 3 hours had passed since the initial detection. The president sat at the head of the emergency command center, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. The massive screen before them showed the alien fleet's steady approach through the solar system. "They're slowing down," Commander Walker reported, pointing to the latest tracking data. "Current position shows them just beyond Jupiter's orbit." The room fell silent as the main communications display lit up with an incoming transmission. The alien ships were broadcasting again, but this time the message was different. The computer systems had finally cracked the basic structure of their language. The holographic display flickered, and a figure appeared. It looked almost human, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. The being spoke, its words automatically translated by the hastily assembled language matrix. "People of Earth," the figure said, its voice carrying an artificial smoothness. "I am Grand Admiral Robert Smith of the Galactic Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our civilization." The president leaned forward, her knuckles white, as she gripped the table's edge. The alien commander's use of a human name was clearly deliberate, a psychological tactic meant to unsettle them. "Your species has shown remarkable potential," Smith continued. "However, your technological development is proceeding in dangerous directions. The Empire cannot allow uncontrolled advancement that might threaten galactic stability." Commander Walker watched as military leaders around the room exchanged worried glances. The Empire wasn't here for friendship. This was an invasion wrapped in diplomatic language. "You have 48 Earth hours to surrender control of your major military installations and governmental structures. The Empire will then begin the integration process. This is not a negotiation." Smith's expression remained neutral, almost bored. "Resistance would be unfortunate." The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. General Thompson was the first to speak. "They're using classic colonial tactics. Demand submission, claim it's for our own good, threaten violence if we refuse. The timing can't be a coincidence," Dr. Miller added, looking up from his tablet. "They waited until just before we achieved major breakthroughs in quantum physics. They're afraid of what we might become." The president stood, her face set with determination. "They've been watching us. That's why their commander uses a human name, why they know our time measurements. They've studied us, looking for weaknesses." She turned to face the room. "But they've made a critical mistake." "What's that, Madam President?" Walker asked. "They think they know everything about us." She pressed a button on the table, opening a secure line. "Get me the Swiss facility. It's time to wake up Project Guardian." The room erupted in murmurs. Project Guardian was beyond classified. Most people in the room had only heard rumors about its existence. "Are you sure?" General Thompson asked. "Once we reveal that capability, there's no going back." "They're going to attack whether we reveal it or not," the president replied. "But first, we need to buy time." She turned to the communications officer. "Prepare a response to the Empire. Tell them Earth's nations need time to discuss their terms. Request a 96-hour extension for proper deliberation." Walker understood the strategy. They needed time to bring Guardian online, to prepare their one chance at survival. The Empire's response came quickly. The holographic display showed Smith again, his expression now showing a hint of amusement. "You may have 72 hours. The Empire is generous to developing worlds. Use this time wisely." As the transmission ended, the president activated her secure tablet. "Send the alert. All Guardian personnel are to report immediately. Full activation protocol is now in effect." She looked around the room, her eyes meeting each person's gaze. "What we do in the next 3 days will determine the fate of our species. The Empire thinks they're dealing with a primitive civilization that will bow to their demands." A small smile crossed her face. "Let's show them how wrong they are." Walker felt a chill run down his spine. He had never seen the president look so confident in the face of such overwhelming odds. Whatever Project Guardian was, it was about to change everything. Deep within the Swiss Alps, behind layers of rock and security systems, Project Guardian waited. Dr. Elizabeth Cooper stood in the central chamber, surrounded by technology that most of humanity didn't know existed. The quantum core pulsed with a soft blue light, its crystalline structure stretching from floor to ceiling. Status report. She called out to her team as emergency lights flashed throughout the facility. The president's activation order had set everything in motion. Power systems at 98%. Her chief engineer, Mike, responded from his station. Quantum alignment holding steady. We're ready for the first full-scale test. The massive blast doors opened, and Commander Walker entered with the president and a small group of world leaders. Their faces showed a mix of awe and concern as they took in the massive chamber. Dr. Cooper, the president said, "Tell them what Guardian can do." Elizabeth nodded, leading the group to the main display. 20 years ago, we discovered something unexpected in our quantum experiments. Space and time aren't just connected, they can be manipulated. What you see here is the result of 2 decades of secret development by the world's best scientists. She touched the display, bringing up a holographic model of the solar system. Guardian isn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It's a system that can create localized distortions in space-time itself. We can trap objects in temporal fields, essentially freezing them in time while the rest of the universe moves on. "You're talking about time manipulation?" the British Prime Minister asked, his voice skeptical. "That's impossible." Elizabeth smiled. "That's what the Empire thinks too. They believe we're centuries away from this kind of technology. That's why they're here now. They want to stop us before we master it." She pressed another button, and the quantum core hummed louder. "But they're too late. We did it 5 years ago." Commander Walker stepped forward. "Have you tested it on something this large?" "Their ships are massive. We've successfully trapped asteroids in temporal fields," Elizabeth replied. "The size doesn't matter. The quantum effects work the same way regardless of scale. What matters is power, and we have plenty of that." She gestured to the surrounding walls. "The entire mountain is lined with quantum energy collectors. We've been stockpiling power for years." The Russian president spoke up. "Why didn't we know about this?" The U.S. president answered, "Because if everyone knew, the Empire would have known too. They've been watching us, studying us. This facility is humanity's best-kept secret and our best hope for survival." Elizabeth led them to another screen showing detailed scans of the Empire's ships. "Their technology is advanced, but it's all based on conventional physics. They have no defense against temporal manipulation because they don't believe it's possible." "Show them," the president ordered. Elizabeth nodded to her team. The quantum core's hum increased, and the holographic display zoomed in on a small asteroid near Mars. She typed in a series of commands, and energy flowed through the facility systems. The world leaders watched in amazement as the asteroid simply stopped. All movement ceased. Even the light around it behaved strangely, creating the subtle distortion in space. "The asteroid is now experiencing time at 1/1,000,000th the normal rate," Elizabeth explained. "From its perspective, one of our years would feel like centuries. We can maintain this field indefinitely, or—" She pressed another button, and the asteroid returned to normal. "We can restore normal time flow whenever we choose." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Can they detect this technology?" Walker asked. "No," Elizabeth replied. "The quantum signatures are completely new to science. They won't know what's happening until it's too late." The president turned to face the group. "Now you understand why this was kept secret, and why we can't simply surrender to the Empire." She looked at Elizabeth. "How long until the system is ready for full deployment?" "We'll be ready in 48 hours, just in time for their deadline." Walker studied the scans of the Empire's fleet again. "They think they're coming to collect a primitive species. Instead, they're about to learn why you should never underestimate humanity." Elizabeth touched the quantum core's control panel, feeling its power pulse through the facility. "We're not just going to survive this," she said quietly. "We're going to change the galaxy's understanding of what's possible." The quantum core pulsed brighter, as if agreeing with her words. Humanity's secret weapon was almost ready. The Empire had no idea what they were about to face. 24 hours had passed since the reveal of Project Guardian. In the control room of the Swiss facility, Dr. Cooper and Commander Walker watched as technicians made final adjustments to the quantum core. The massive screen before them showed Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, their chosen target for the demonstration. "Are you sure about this?" Walker asked, looking at the detailed scans of the moon. "Manipulating an entire moon might be seen as an act of war." "That's exactly what we want," Elizabeth replied, her fingers moving across the control panel. "The Empire needs to understand that we're not defenseless. They need to fear what we can do." The President's voice came through the speakers. She was watching from the secure command center with other world leaders. "Begin the demonstration, Dr. Cooper. Let's show them what humanity is capable of." Elizabeth nodded to her team. Initiating quantum field generation. Power at 30% capacity. The facility hummed with energy as the quantum core brightened. Targeting systems locked on Europa. Beginning temporal manipulation in 3, 2, 1. The effect was immediate and visible. Europa, the icy moon of Jupiter, suddenly shimmered as if covered by a heat haze. Then, before the eyes of everyone watching, it began to break apart. Not through explosion or violence, but through precise, controlled disassembly. Layer by layer, the moon separated into perfectly organized sections, hanging in space like a giant 3D puzzle. "Quantum fields holding stable," Mike reported from his station. "Each section is perfectly preserved in its own temporal bubble." Elizabeth allowed herself a small smile. Phase 2 beginning. Reassembly sequence initiated. The separated pieces of Europa began to move, dancing through space in an intricate pattern. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, they started coming back together. Within minutes, the moon was whole again, exactly as it had been, except for one small detail. On its surface, clearly visible to any watching telescope, was a message carved into the ice in letters hundreds of kilometers tall. "This is your OARNing. Message transmitted and ready," Dr. Cooper, the communications officer, announced. Elizabeth looked to the President's screen for confirmation. After receiving a nod, she pressed the broadcast button. Their carefully prepared message began transmitting to the Empire's fleet. The message was simple, recorded in every major Earth language and accompanied by the full video of Europa's transformation. "To the Galactic Empire. You have witnessed a small demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. What you saw was performed at 30% of our system's power capacity, using technology you believed impossible. We have no desire for conflict, but we will not surrender our sovereignty. You have 6 hours to withdraw your fleet beyond Neptune's orbit. Any hostile action or failure to withdraw will result in temporal displacement of your entire fleet. This is our only warning." Commander Walker watched the message transmit, noting the time. Exactly 48 hours since the Empire's initial ultimatum. "Do you think they'll believe it?" "They have to," Elizabeth replied. "The evidence is right in front of them. We just took apart a moon and put it back together like a child's toy." The response from the Empire came faster than anyone expected. Grand Admiral Smith's hologram appeared, his normally composed face showing clear signs of shock. "This is impossible," he stated, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "Our scientists assured us you were centuries away from quantum manipulation technology." The President stepped forward to address him. "Your scientists were wrong. You've seen only a fraction of what we can do. The choice is yours, Admiral. 6 hours to withdraw or face the consequences." "You don't understand what you're doing," Smith replied. "The Empire cannot allow this level of technology to exist outside our control. The security of the galaxy." The President cut him off. "No, Admiral, you don't understand. Earth is not some primitive world you can simply absorb into your empire. We are not asking for permission to exist. We are telling you to leave." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Everyone knew the next 6 hours would determine the fate of Earth. "Now we wait," Elizabeth said, monitoring the quantum core's power levels. "Let's see if they're smart enough to take the warning seriously." Walker looked at the Empire's fleet on the tactical display. "Something tells me they're not going to go quietly." "Then they'll learn the hard way," Elizabeth replied, her hand resting on the quantum core's main control panel. "Either way, Earth is not going to bow to their demands." Grand Admiral Smith stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn, watching the replay of Europa's transformation for the 12th time. His advisors waited nervously as he studied every detail of Earth's demonstration. "It must be a trick," General Davis, his second-in-command, suggested. "Some kind of advanced hologram technology. No primitive world could possess this level of quantum manipulation." Smith turned away from the screen, his face hard with anger. "The sensors confirm it was real. They took apart a moon and rebuilt it, just to send us a message." He walked to the tactical display, where Earth's solar system glowed in perfect detail. 5 hours remain until their deadline. In the war room of the Imperial Dawn, the Empire's best scientists argued over the data. Scans of Europa showed no sign of explosive residue, no evidence of conventional weapons. The moon had simply separated, defying everything they thought they knew about physics. "The timing is what concerns me most," Smith said to his assembled commanders. "They waited until we arrived. They wanted us to see this." He pointed to the message carved into Europa's surface. This wasn't desperation. This was a show of force. A junior officer rushed into the room, holding a datapad. "Sir, we've detected energy buildups in the Swiss mountains on Earth. The readings, they're unlike anything in our database." Smith studied the new data, his expression growing darker. "They're powering up their weapon again. Full power this time." He looked at his fleet display, showing 15 of the Empire's most powerful warships. Decades of conquest had taught him to recognize dangerous situations, and everything about this one felt wrong. "Sir," General Davis stepped forward, "the Empire has never retreated from a primitive world. If we leave now, other planets might question our authority. We should strike immediately, before they can use their weapon again." Smith walked to the window, watching the distant blue dot that was Earth. "You're not thinking strategically, Davis. They let us see their power at 30%. Why show us that specific number? They wanted us to know they were holding back." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If what they'd seen was only a fraction of Earth's capability. "New transmission from Earth," the communications officer announced. The main screen lit up, showing the human president alongside Dr. Cooper and Commander Walker. Their faces showed no fear, no uncertainty. "Admiral Smith," the president began, "you have 1 hour remaining. Our sensors show your fleet has not moved. I hope you're using this time wisely." Smith straightened his uniform. "Madam President, surely we can reach an agreement. The Empire can offer Earth protection, technology, trade." "You still don't understand," Dr. Cooper interrupted. "We don't need your protection or your technology. Your presence here was never a negotiation. It was always a test, one you're failing." Smith felt a chill run down his spine. These humans weren't behaving like any primitive species he'd encountered. They showed no fear of the Empire's mighty fleet, no awe at their advanced technology. "Test?" he asked, unable to hide his curiosity. "Yes, Admiral," Commander Walker replied. "A test to see if the Empire could recognize when it's outmatched. So far, you're proving disappointingly predictable." The transmission ended, leaving Smith with his thoughts. 50 minutes remained until the deadline. Pride and protocol demanded they attack, but instinct told him something else. These humans had shown them something impossible, then calmly gave them time to retreat. It wasn't the behavior of a primitive species, it was the confidence of a power that knew exactly what it was capable of. "Sir," General Davis waited for orders. "Should we begin the attack sequence?" Smith looked at the message carved into Europa one more time. The Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, but none had ever done something like this. None had ever issued just one warning. "No," he said finally. "Plot a course beyond Neptune's orbit. Full retreat." "Sir," Davis protested, The Empire has never faced anything like this." Smith cut him off. "And if we're wise, we never will again." As the fleet began its withdrawal, Smith couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact with the Empire. They had rewritten the rules of the game entirely. 15 minutes remained until Earth's deadline. In the Swiss facility's control room, Dr. Cooper watched the Empire's fleet on the main display. The massive ships hadn't moved. "They're powering up weapons," Commander Walker announced, studying the sensor readings. "Looks like they're choosing pride over survival." Elizabeth nodded to her team. "Begin power-up sequence. Take Guardian to full capacity." The quantum core's gentle hum turned into a deep resonance that vibrated through the mountain. Blue light pulsed through crystalline channels in the walls, growing brighter with each second. "Should we wait for them to cross the deadline?" Mike asked from his engineering station. "They still have 14 minutes to withdraw." "No," the president's voice came through the speakers. "They made their choice when they powered up weapons. Dr. Cooper, you have authorization to proceed." Elizabeth's fingers flew across the control panel. Guardian reaching 85% power. Time dilation fields forming. She looked at the tactical display, where 15 Imperial warships hung in space like arrows aimed at Earth's heart. Targeting systems locked on all vessels. Walker moved closer to the display. "They're launching fighters. Hundreds of them." Small dots began appearing around the larger ships, forming attack formations. "It doesn't matter," Elizabeth replied calmly. "The temporal field will catch everything within the target zone." Guardian at 95% power. Alarms suddenly blared through the facility. "They're firing," Walker shouted. "Multiple energy weapons headed for Earth's defense satellites." Elizabeth smiled. "Too late." Guardian at full power. Initiating temporal displacement in 3, 2, 1. The quantum core erupted with brilliant blue light. On the main screen, space itself seemed to ripple around the Empire's fleet. The energy weapons they had fired froze in mid-flight, suspended in the vacuum of space like glowing threads. "Time dilation field stable," Mike reported. "Fleet is experiencing time at 1/10,000th of normal speed. From their perspective, each second for us will feel like 3 hours for them." The control room watched in amazement as the mighty Imperial fleet hung motionless in space. Fighter craft stopped mid-maneuver, energy weapons remained frozen in flight, and even the light around the ships seemed to bend strangely. "Secondary sensors confirm," another technician called out. "The entire fleet is trapped in the temporal field. No signs of breakout attempts." Elizabeth checked the power readings. "The field is self-sustaining now. We can maintain this indefinitely." She turned to face the president's screen. "What are your orders?" The president studied the frozen fleet. "Let them experience 1 day in their time. That should give them about 3 years to think about their choices." "Yes, Madam President." Elizabeth made the adjustments. "Field is set. In 24 hours, we'll restore them to normal time." Commander Walker shook his head in amazement. 3 years trapped in a moment. Even if they could see out, they'd watch the stars spin by at impossible speeds. "That's assuming they can perceive anything at all," Elizabeth explained. "At this level of time dilation, their consciousness might not even be able to process what's happening. For them, it might feel like blinking. They'll fire their weapons, and suddenly 3 years will have passed." The president addressed the room. "What we've done here today changes everything. Not just for Earth, but for the galaxy. The Empire will never look at us the same way again. Elizabeth watched the frozen fleet on the display. They called us primitive. They thought they could simply demand our surrender. She touched the quantum core's control panel gently. Instead, they learned that humanity had surpassed them in ways they hadn't even imagined possible. And the rest of the galaxy? Walker asked. What happens when they learn what we can do? They'll learn what the Empire learned today, the President replied. Earth is not to be threatened. We won't start conflicts, but we will end them. As the quantum core hummed steadily, maintaining its grip on the Empire's fleet, Elizabeth thought about how quickly everything had changed. In less than a week, humanity had gone from a primitive species to one that could manipulate time itself. The Empire had wanted to prevent Earth from becoming too powerful. Instead, they had forced humanity to reveal just how powerful they had already become. 24 hours had passed. In the Swiss facility, Dr. Cooper prepared to release the Empire's fleet from temporal stasis. The massive ships still hung motionless in space, frozen in the moment of their attempted attack. All stations ready, she announced, looking around the control room. Commander Walker stood beside her, while the President and world leaders watched from their screens. Beginning time restoration in 3, 2, 1. The quantum core pulsed, and the temporal field began to fade. On the main display, they watched as the Empire's fleet slowly returned to normal time. The frozen energy weapons dissipated harmlessly into space, their power long since faded. Fleet returning to normal time flow, Mike reported from his station. Sensors show all ships intact. They're powering up their communication systems. The main screen flickered to life, showing Grand Admiral Smith. His face was pale, his uniform wrinkled as if he'd been wearing it for days. In his eyes, they could see the haunting look of someone who had experienced something beyond their understanding. How long? He asked, his voice shaking. For us, 24 hours, Elizabeth replied calmly. For you and your fleet, just over 3 years of subjective time. Though I suspect you experienced it more as a kind of dream state. Smith slumped in his chair. We couldn't move, couldn't speak. Just aware, watching as time twisted around us. He straightened up, trying to regain his composure. The Empire has never encountered anything like this. The President stepped forward. And now you understand why we warned you. Earth doesn't seek conflict, Admiral. We simply refuse to be conquered. The Emperor must be informed, Smith said, more to himself than to them. Everything we thought we knew about primitive worlds, about technological development. He looked directly at the camera. You could have destroyed us. Yes, Elizabeth confirmed, but that's not who we are. The demonstration with Europa, the temporal field, these were warnings, not attacks. Remember that. Commander Walker moved to the tactical display. Your fleet is free to leave, Admiral. But first, we have a message for the Empire and the galaxy. The President nodded, and Elizabeth activated the quantum core one final time. High above Earth, the temporal energies formed words in space itself, each letter kilometers high, glowing with blue quantum fire. The message would remain visible for months, a reminder to any who look toward Earth. This world is protected. Approach with peace, or no TA to all. Smith read the message, then looked back at the screen. There will be others, you know. The galaxy is vast, and not everyone will heed your warning. We know, the President replied. That's why the message isn't just about protection. It's an invitation. Those who come in peace will find friendship. Those who come for conquest. She gestured at his fleet, will find themselves with a lot of time to reconsider their choices. Elizabeth checked the final readings from Guardian. The temporal residue in your ships will fade in a few days. I suggest you use that time to leave our solar system. The next demonstration won't be so gentle. Smith nodded slowly. The Empire will remember this day. Earth has earned its independence and its reputation. He paused, then added quietly, for what it's worth, I underestimated your species. It won't happen again." The transmission ended. On the tactical display, they watched as the Empire's fleet slowly turned away from Earth and began accelerating toward the outer solar system. Commander Walker turned to Elizabeth. "Do you think they really learned their lesson?" She smiled, watching the quantum core's steady pulse. "They learned that humanity isn't what they thought we were. We're not primitive, we're not helpless, and we're definitely not afraid." The President addressed the room one final time. "Today marks a new chapter in human history. We've stepped onto the galactic stage not as victims or subjects, but as equals. The Empire came to prevent us from becoming too powerful." She looked at the message still glowing in space. "Instead, they forced us to show the galaxy exactly how powerful we've become." In the control room of Project Guardian, Elizabeth watched Earth's message shine against the darkness of space. The Empire had wanted to stop humanity's advancement. Instead, they had announced it to the entire galaxy. Humanity's warning would echo through the stars. Earth was not to be trifled with. They had given their one and only warning. Anyone foolish enough to ignore it would learn why the Empire's mighty fleet now fled from the little blue planet they had once thought so primitive.